Did you know on Tuesday night there was a battle? A good old-fashioned ratings battle between WWE and AEW as NXT and Dynamite went head-to-head.
Let's fucking go!
So welcome to a special bonus episode of my podcast, The Bechdel Hold, where I am going to review head-to-head AEW Dynamite versus WWE NXT from Tuesday, October 10th. Now, one thing I didn't know until Tuesday night was that my TV could do split screen. Yeah, I had absolutely no idea. So I was able to watch both NXT and Dynamite at the same time, like properly, same size, and see what each was putting on at that very moment. So why not give an honest review of what I thought about what each company was offering? But first things first, as I said, this is a bonus episode of my podcast, The Bechdel Hold. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't yet listened to my podcast, please head to Apple or Spotify and go subscribe to that. It comes out every week. A new episode is going to drop on Saturday. And if you want to see video versions of the podcast every week, you can do that by signing up to my Patreon or by becoming a member of this YouTube channel. Don't forget as well to go follow me on Twitter at Stephanie M. Chase. Same on Instagram and on TikTok as well. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, Stephanie Chase Wrestling. Now. I'm recording this Wednesday night. It's 10 p.m. We're like an hour after the ratings came in. Usually my Wednesday nights are spent getting ready for Dynamite, but it was all different this week. Firstly, I wish this was every fucking week, I have to say. Because number one, Dynamite, I stay up till 3 a.m. watching Dynamite on a Wednesday. And it really fucks up the next 2 days for me to stay up that late, especially because usually my work schedule is I work until 1 a.m. every night, except on Fridays where I start work at 8 a.m. in the morning and finish it at 3 p.m. So Friday always completely throws off my sleep schedule. And Wednesday night for me is too close to the Friday to like fix everything. If it was on Tuesday, it would be so much easier for me. And also, if these two shows were going head to head, I think that would be better for everyone because this is the most invested I've been in NXT for a long time. And I do think, and I have said on my podcast, that NXT has really been improving, but it going head to head with Dynamite like drove me to watch it, give it a closer watch this week than I would have in previous weeks. And as someone who was around for the original Monday Night Wars, this is exciting to see two companies try and outdo each other. It was exciting back when AEW first started, and it was exciting last night. And Mr. Tony Khan was out on Twitter taking shots at Vince McMahon and his misdeeds. Another thing I talk about in my podcast a lot, people not talking about those misdeeds. Taking shots at Shawn Michaels and Triple H. And you know what? Is it professional? No. But we're in the professional wrestling business. A business where, although professional is in the name, it's not professional at all. And I thought that for the first time in a long time, Tony Khan felt like he had an actual fire underneath him, because I really do think he has become proper complacent in recent months. And he's become someone who's taken all the great feedback on the pay-per-views he's taken that feedback too much. And then he's let that drown out any criticism of his weekly TV booking, which I think has been very lackluster recently. And finally this week, it seemed like the old Tony. It seemed like a guy that wanted to go out there and deliver the best TV possible to get higher viewers and to beat WWE. Now, I am not a child. And hopefully there are no children watching. If you are a child and you're watching, please turn off. This is not for you. So I do not have to sit here and tell you or be told to just enjoy wrestling and just love everything. If you like both WWE and AEW, that's cool. I like both WWE and AEW. But it is super fun when stuff like this happens and when we can compare them and when we can see them go and try and outdo each other. It's fun and it makes it better for us, the fans, and better TV for everyone. There was a time when AEW started, and it feels a bit like they retconned this, where people in that company were saying that they would be bigger than WWE, that they could beat WWE. There were a time that AEW Dynamite ratings were doing so well that people thought they could beat Raw. And you had like Tony Khan and other big stars in the company really talking about like the possibility of beating WWE. And then as AEW ratings and live attendance went down, it seemed like more and more they went back. They were saying, oh, well, you can never beat WWE. We're the challenger brand. We're Pepsi. And it was like, if they had just, I think, kept that momentum from the beginning. But as I said, I think Tony got really complacent. Now, let's talk about the actual ratings number. NXT won like I thought they would. They had 921,000 viewers to AEW's 609,000. And in the 18 to 49 key demo, 396,000 for NXT, 346,000 for AEW. Now, this kind of wasn't, well, it really wasn't a fair fight for AEW because we had an NXT here that had Cody Rhodes, John Cena, and The Undertaker on it, which is not what you get typically on NXT every week. Though NXT ratings have been doing very well in recent weeks. They really are seeing an increase. The show's gaining momentum. Then you also have to look at the fact that AEW Dynamite was not on its usual day, and that's always going to lose a show some viewers. But I'm not surprised that NXT won, and really they had to win because they pulled out the stops so much. It would be totally embarrassing to bring out The Undertaker and not be able to beat Dynamite. Though I did expect them to clear 1 million with this episode. But a lot of people watched wrestling on Tuesday night, and maybe a lot of people did what I did and watched them side by side. And because I watched them side by side, I'm going to review them side by side. So I'm going to be using as my reference point a wonderful graph done by Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. Go subscribe to WrestleNomics. I'm sure you all are. Brandon doesn't need my signal boost. That shows the quarter hour numbers and what was in each quarter head to head. So I'm going to be using that base and my own memory in order to give you my opinions on the show. So AEW Dynamite opened their show with Christian doing a promo. I love Christian. He's great. It is funny that he's now become like, it feels like he's the top guy in AEW. And I think that's because of the problem with MJF's title reign that I will get into. But he's certainly like one of the most entertaining and compelling characters on AEW at the moment. So I thought it was cool to have him there as the first person that we saw. And the first match was Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland. I love this match. Anyone that listens to me knows that I think Swerve is the guy. Swerve and Jay White are the two guys that I put everything into. And it was really cool to see Swerve get this match with Danielson. And opening up with a Bryan Danielson match was a great idea because this is what AEW was built on, like great matches, being like the wrestling company. So it was cool to see them go with such a strong opening match. It was won by Danielson because Hangman Page interfered. Well, he came and stopped Prince Nana from interfering. So Bryan Danielson will get a TNT title shot. That is very cool. I can't wait for that. That match is happening on Collision, I think. And I'm very glad to see that the Swerve and Hangman story is going to continue, because what I want them to do is have a battle at Full Gear and for me to be there to see it live. But for me, for this quarter, Danielson and Swerve, that was the winner. That was what I was glued on. Because on the other side, we had Cody Rhodes. So Cody Rhodes came out to do a promo. He made some announcements, one of which was the expected announcement that the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic is coming back to NXT. And he also said that he was the GM for the night. Now, I did think it was funny because Cody is, of course, one of the founders of AEW, one of the members of the Elite, to bring him out first. And they teased that he had big announcements. His announcements were kind of nothing, special or groundbreaking. It was all as expected. We then had Ilya Dragunov, who's the NXT champion, coming out. And then we had Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley. Now, this is where my attention was kind of diverted because I love Dominic Mysterio. He's so entertaining, especially when he has Rhea Ripley with him. So a match was set up by Cody, who is the GM, between Dragunov and Dominic Mysterio. And I thought that was a really good move to put Dominic in a match because Dominic is a very compelling character. People love to hear him and people tune in for him. And Ilya Dragunov is a really great worker. Now, in the ratings, we had NXT open strong here with 991,000, but AEW pretty strong too with 731,000. Now, NXT went commercial free for the first 30 minutes. I think it was just 30 minutes. And AEW Dynamite went commercial free for the first hour. Now, following the Cody opening, when Danielson and Strickland's match was still going on over on NXT, we then had Roxanne Perez versus Asuka. I thought this was a very good match. I think Roxanne is excellent, one of the absolute rising stars of NXT. And Asuka is, of course, always a great worker. It wasn't like a great match, but I thought it was very, very good. And I've always said that if NXT/WWE really wants to stick it to AEW, they just have to focus on their women's division because that is what AEW is terrible at, is booking a women's division. So this match was very, very cool. It was great to see Roxanne get that chance in there with Asuka. But I will say that most of my attention was still on Danielson versus Strickland at this time, just because I love those two so much. Now, this is a head-to-head clash that I really remember because over on Dynamite, following Strickland and Danielson, Judas hit. And I was like, I'm tapping out of this. I was not interested in this. Chris Jericho versus Powerhouse Hobbs. This was, I think, one of the longest squash matches ever because basically Powerhouse Hobbs won and he pretty much dominated Jericho, but not enough for it to be a squash match. Like Jericho still had to get a code breaker in. So I find this match to be annoyingly in an in-between stage of just not being quite dominant enough to be a squash, but good for Powerhouse Hobbs getting a win there over Jericho. So with Jericho over on Dynamite, I was like, now is my chance to devote my full undivided attention to NXT. And they brought out Butch Talbot and Ridge Holland defeating Gallus in a pub rules match. I mean, look, I like Pete Dunne. He's a good wrestler, but Gallus are no, they're not for me. It's quite bizarre to me that Shawn Michaels seems to have such an affection for Gallus. I don't have this at all. I saw someone tweet, and I wish I could remember who it was, when these two matches, Jericho and Hobbs and Gallus, the Gallus match came on. I wish there was a third promotion, and then MLW, this is your chance. And I felt this way too. This was a bad quarter hour for me. It was like a lot of people that I just didn't want to see on my TV. I think the only person I did want to see on TV was Hobbs, but I wasn't intrigued by the match that he was in. And so I find that a bit of a feel of a quarter hour. So in the ratings, we had 655,000 for AEW Dynamite and 956,000 for NXT. I am pretty sure that this was the quarter, though, that the demo was highest for AEW. And all I can say is, please no one tell Chris Jericho that. Like, no one, because you're only going to encourage him more. You're only going to encourage him more. And he may even start calling himself the demo god again. And nobody wants that. So Dynamite then, for the next quarter, we got like the last 3 minutes of Jericho Hobbs. So that's still going on there. And then the next thing they did was one of these Adam Cole vignette. If you've been listening to me for a while, you will know I do not like these at all. I think they are so unfunny. Last week it was bad. Last week it was an embarrassment. I thought maybe they would have like learned a lesson from last week, but no, we were subjected to it again this week. My only hope is that they clearly batched, like filmed these all together, and maybe Tony just didn't want to offend whoever made it and put the work into editing this by not airing it. But this was so bad. It was not funny at all. We're meant to believe that Adam Cole has been like trapped in Roddy's house for a week, even though in AEW canon, Adam Cole's dating Britt Baker. I don't know what she's doing about the fact that her boyfriend is like missing with no cell reception. It's all so stupid. It's not funny at all. And it's the kind of stuff that people would mock NXT for doing, but yet we're getting it on Dynamite. And I think that if Dynamite is really going to find its footing again, it should be a true alternative. And this kind of stuff, like, it's fair enough if it's funny. You know, comedy and wrestling isn't for everyone. I'm not really a big fan of it, but I don't think we've seen worse in a long time than these particular vignettes. They're not good. And it's not making me see Adam Cole in a very good light at all. So yeah, that totally wasn't for me. After that video, we got Orange Cassidy versus Rey Fenix for the International Championship. Now remember, Rey Fenix won it when Jon Moxley got concussed in their match. And Jon Moxley was initially scheduled for this match. And then they pulled him like today, not today, last night before Dynamite, they made the announcement. Bit of sloppy shop work there. Surely they would have known that Moxley was not cleared before Dynamite, and they shouldn't have been waiting to make a decision like that close to it. I also thought it was pretty weird that they announced this on the pre-show with Renee and RJ City there, just her whole reaction to it, because surely she would have known, considering that she's Moxley's wife and that is in canon. But yeah, they really wanted that belt off Phoenix because, of course, he was never meant to win it in the first place. So this match, which was pretty short, I don't know how long it was, but it was a definite sprint of a match. And we had Cassidy hitting the beach break for 2, and then the orange punch and the mouse trap to get the pin. So the title is back on Orange Cassidy, and I think, I'm sure the original intention was for a rematch match, but I don't know where they really go from here, because obviously Moxley wasn't meant to lose it when he did, but him beating Phoenix for it last night would have been fine. But him beating Cassidy, I don't think it's a good look, because Cassidy had that long, amazing reign, and then they put it in Moxley, and it's really unfortunate what happened to Moxley, but I'm not really sure what they should do with this belt now, if we should be going for another like lengthy Cassidy reign, or if this is just a quick way to get it back onto Moxley, but take it off Phoenix as soon as possible. Did think this is a pretty good match though. Now, what were they offering us over on NXT? Well, there was still some of that Gallus match in the picture-in-picture. And then we got a great video of Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyrie. This was showing them this was showing when Becky went to visit where Lyra was training. I think this is in Bray. I think it's the school that Finn Balor, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to call him Fergal, set up, which I have actually seen, not inside. But this was really, really cool, showing history between the two women. We're going to have 2 Irish women, 2 women from Dublin versus each other on Halloween Havoc. That is really, really cool. As an Irish girl myself, I love this. I thought it was a great video package, a great way to show a connection between the two and build up this investment. And Becky Lynch, I'll say it here now because I haven't really had a chance to talk about it. She's been great in NXT, and I'm sure she's truly helping these young female wrestlers being down there. It's awesome. Her match with Tiffany Stratton at the last show was awesome. So I really liked this video package, and seeing what they were doing there, my attention was more on that than the Orange Cassidy and Rey Fenix match. AEW there got 673,000 viewers, and it was 861 for NXT. So we had the finish of Phoenix and Cassidy, and then we had some complete bizarreness. Toni Storm showed her new movie, Portrait of a Star, which was during Picture in Picture. It was, I think she was like acting out the commercials. It was actually, given my split screen setup, it was kind of hard to see. But they had, gone like and so long without a break that a break was inevitable. And this was kind of a cool thing to do during a break. But I was more just a bit perplexed, but I think that was because of how I was watching it. We then got a squash match between Wardlow and Matt Sydal. This was just a couple of minutes. Wardlow just finishing and just hitting 4 power bombs, referee stoppage. He left through the crowd. I'm going to say it. I think Wardlow is on his way out. Like, he looks checked out. I know it seems like they're rebooting him, but to me, he just looks like his head isn't in it. And it's kind of weird to reboot him in a way where, like, we're not going back to the beginning, because he started as like MJF's bodyguard. But we're definitely going backwards with him as a character, and they've just never figured him out. They dropped the ball completely after that MJF feud, and I just don't really know what you can do to rehab Wardlow. I really don't know, and I like him. But I'll get to what was on NXT in a minute, but at one point, one of my screens was showing Braun Breaker and the other was showing Wardlow, and I was just thinking, A, I want to see this match, and B, I think I will see it within the next, I don't know, year, because I just feel like Wardlow isn't very long for this place, and I can't blame him. We then had this segment where Renee went backstage to talk to Chris Jericho, who was sitting there like all hurt after his match. She asked him, "How are you?" Before he could answer, Daniel Garcia came over and was like, "Are you okay?" And Matt Menard was saying like, "No, Danny, just forget him." I can only assume now that Daniel Garcia's storyline is that he's been in an abusive relationship with Jericho, mentally abusive relationship. And he's at that stage of it where you still think you can help / fix the person that's been causing you all this psychological harm, and your friends are telling you no. That's the only thing that I can get from what's going on here. It was odd that Renee asked Jericho how he was, and he never answered. Like, they were distracted by the other two, but she never like followed up on the question or anything. And then later we found out that Jericho was taken to hospital. So let's like hope that he's off TV for at least 2 weeks. There must be a Fozzy concerts coming up or something, because that's like the only way he leaves TV, if he even does. But yeah, Kenny's already out. I guess he's going out for a couple of weeks too. And then we got the start of the Jay White and Hangman Page match, which I'll talk about like for the next quarter. So over in NXT. Okay, NXT really won this one. I'll tell you the numbers now. 909 for NXT, 589 for AEW. And why? Because when we had the Toni Storm and the ad break going on, we had John Cena coming out. John Cena came out and he talked to the crowd. It was like, when they bring out John Cena, this is like when he came out during the Money in the Bank show in London. It's like he never actually has anything to say. He just says a whole lot of nothing, but it's not really the point of what he's saying. It's just that he's there out in front of the crowd, and the crowd are all going to cheer. But his promo was interrupted by Braun Breaker. The crowd were telling Breaker that he sucks, and Breaker tried to cut a promo on Cena, but the audience was chanting bullshit. It was like broken up. But Cena wished Breaker luck in his match and asked for a handshake, and Breaker then started to attack Cena, but Cena managed to avoid being hit by a spear and lifts up Breaker in a fireman's carry. Breaker escapes and he leaves. So for this quarter hour, I was definitely looking at NXT more, just because John Cena was out there. And even though I know John Cena always says a whole bunch of nothing, I was still intrigued. And then, of course, when Braun Breaker came out, This was a hard one for AEW because they had the break. The Tony video was cool, but it was during a break. Wardlow thing, yeah, I don't think that's gonna like really grab people. And then the Jericho deal backstage. I mean, the thing is, yeah, he put over Hobbs, but we got like the attention was still all on him. It's still all about him. It's not about Hobbs, who we've not seen any like character development or anything since he came under Don Callis's wing. So a bit of a dud quarter hour there for AEW. Next up, though, was my favorite moment of the night. It was Jay White versus Hangman Page, two of my favorite wrestlers. And let me say, if you don't know their history, please go look up every match they ever had together because I love all of them. I did a tweet saying that RIP NXT female demo when this was on. I don't know the exact numbers, but it'd be interesting to see. This, to me, I said about Swerve before, and Danielson, but like this is really what NXT is all about. Or sorry, this is really what AEW should all be about. I said the same kind of thing with Swerve and Danielson, but Danielson, even though he's one of the best wrestlers in the world and one of the best of all time, he's an ex-WWE guy, and he's not exactly a young guy. Swerve is. But Hangman and Jay White are two young guys, neither of whom has ever been in WWE. This is what we should be showcasing in AEW all the time. This match felt so big time. It felt like a pay-per-view match. It felt like it could have been a world title match. I thought it was absolutely excellent. And Jay White went over. Because, of course, Prince Nana came out after what happened during the Swerve match. But I loved this match. I was glued to it. There's nothing they could have done on the other channel to take me away from this. I really, really loved it. So over on NXT, we had a backstage bit with Baron Corbin. Then we had the NXT Championship match, Ilya Dragunov defeating Dominic Mysterio. LA Knight was special guest referee. I forgot to mention that earlier, that he was going to be doing that. Look, from what I saw of this, it was a good match. And I really liked Dragunov and Dominic Mysterio. Having LA Knight there was cool. But if there was anything that was going to keep me watching AEW, it was Jay White and Hangman Page. So I'm sorry, I don't have any big thoughts on this. As far as the ratings go, though, it was 958 for NXT and 549 for AEW. It was actually the lowest quarter for AEW, which is not good. Following the match between Jay and Hangman, we got MJF coming out to cut a promo with Jay. Obviously, Jay has stolen MJF's belt, the Triple B. MJF asked for it back. Jay White is not giving it back to him. He has to earn it, win it back at Full Gear when they have the championship match. Now, at the end of this, we had a controversial moment that AEW has been getting a lot of heat for online. So Juice Robinson had a roll of quarters that said Friedman on them and said they were for MJF. Now, Juice has been hitting people with quarters for a while, though I don't think it's been spotlighted a lot for maybe everyone watching to know. And of course, MJF has previously said that he's had a roll of quarters used against him in anti-Semitic attacks at school. I read a lot of the debate about this online. It was mostly negative. People were not happy that AEW decided to air this. Now, I would say listen to Jewish voices on this. I'm not Jewish, so there's only so much I can say. But considering everything that's happened in the world, it was really a choice to go ahead with doing this on this particular week. And I do think it was bad judgment on AEW's part. Now, MJF has come out on Twitter, and of course, I'm sure this was MJF's idea, and it was something that he wanted to do because, MJF has highlighted anti-Semitism a lot, and it's, it's really part of not just his character, but who he is, that he wants to highlight that anti-Semitism is still a huge problem. And that's really great, that he's shedding light on that. So he came out on Twitter and he basically said, this is not something that I would take lightly, and trust me with it, like that kind of thing. And I do think that MJF's heart is in the right place doing this. But I think that, one, I do really think that the criticisms towards MJF last week, he really took to heart. I spoke about that on my podcast with a tweet that he did last Friday. So I think that like this week, his promo was better than I've seen from him in ages. It felt like the old MJF. And I think that along with doing this like fiery promo where there was no goofiness at all, that I think he also wanted to do something that was really serious and attention grabbing like this. And I do get him saying, you know, trust me with it. And as I said, I think his heart's in the right place. I think he's going to try and do a really good job with it. But it is quite a hard pivot from when we've seen him do such goofy things to now all of a sudden he's saying like, trust me with a very serious like story, a very like serious issue. And there is the question of, can wrestling handle these issues? Can wrestling tell these stories properly? And historically, wrestling has not done a great job with this kind of stuff at all. There's a lot of examples of really bad storylines in wrestling involving serious issues. I'm very sorry for the noise outside. If you can hear sirens, I live in the center of town. I live in the center of Liverpool. Okay. And you know, MJF saying like, let wrestling try to do this. It should be able to do this. But I think like wrestling is such a unique thing. It's hard because there's like only so far it can go. Probably because wrestling's all about blurring the lines between fiction and nonfiction, what's real life and what's not, characters and real people and all of that. So it's a tricky one. But definitely listen to Jewish voices over mine. And I have come on my podcast YouTube channel many, many times and called out misogyny that I see on AEW TV, like always. So of course, I'm going to listen when I hear people bring up other criticisms of storylines. So absolutely listen to all the Jewish fans and Jewish content creators, everyone out there with their takes on this. For me, I think that it was shocking that they did it and probably poorly timed given world events. As I said, I think Max's heart was in the right place, but it just didn't feel like it was the right time watching it. And the reaction that I've seen on my timeline has been quite overwhelmingly negative. And I think that maybe it put a damper on things with AEW last night, because I saw a lot of people saying like that they were turning off or AEW deserved to lose ratings because of this. I'm sorry if that was all very rambly and clumsy, or if I didn't say the right things. I'm just trying my best here. This quarter hour also had another Tony Storm picture-in-picture ad. Over in NXT, we had the last 3 minutes of Dragunov and Dominic. We had John Cena in the locker room talking with Carmelo, where Trick Williams came in. We had Paul Heyman seen talking to Ava Raine, the daughter of The Rock. And then we saw Jade Cargill arrive in the building in a white SUV and a beautiful pink outfit. She looked amazing. She was greeted by Shawn Michaels. We had Baron Corbin confronting Cody. He wants Rhodes to book Corbin against Dragunov in a title match at Halloween Havoc. Rhodes instead booked a number one contenders triple threat for next week with Corbin against Dijak and the winner of Hayes Breaker. And then we had the beginning of a match between Lola Vice and Danny Palmer in the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament. So for this quarter, we had 557,000 for AEW and 940,000 for NXT. For me, I was watching AEW. I was watching this, the continuation of this Jay White MJF segment. Like I said, I thought MJF's promo was really good. It's the most compelling he's been in weeks or months for me. And Jay White, of course, is is my fave. Uh, he's my, being biased pick. So I was really invested in that. So that had me completely. But the minute I did switch my eyes was when Jade Cargill walked on the screen, because I love Jade Cargill and I love the WWE presentation of Jade Cargill. She looked like $8 billion. Forget looking like $1 million, $1 billion. Okay, then we had women versus women, because over on AEW we had Hikaru Shida versus Saraya for the AEW Women's Championship. And oh my gosh, we had a title change, a shock title change. Saraya's title run, I now have no memory of it. It's over, thank God. It's just annoying that they did the title change at Wembley and we had to hear Ronnie Raddick and his fucking song. That annoys me. But Shida winning is awesome. But the booking is really bad, because Shida took this, Shida, the woman that held the belt during the pandemic, she then gets the belt just to be a transitional champion so Saraya can beat her at Wembley, and now the belt has gone off Saraya so quickly back onto Shida. So who knows how long Shida's going to have it this time around. So I just worry about that. Good for Shida, but yeah, it's just wild that she's champion again. That it kind of shows you that there's something really, really wrong with the women's division, that if they wanted to take the belt off Saraya for whatever else they had planned, the only option of someone to put it on was Shida. Now, obviously, they're building up Toni Storm because her character is getting over with the vignettes and everything. But like, there was no one else around that they could put the belt on instead of Shida again. So I just hope this pays off in a good way for Shida, and she's not just a transitional champion again. So yeah, women versus women. Over in NXT, we had the continuation of the Lola Vice versus Danny Palmer match. I thought this was a really good match. This is the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, and for young rising talent, excellent. Very, very good. Grading them based on their experience. And like I said before, if WWE really wants to stick it to AEW, book your women well, because Tony is sadly not capable. He doesn't have the investment. And Sean and Triple H do a much, much better job at it. And so for AEW, this had 558, and for NXT, it was 887. We also had a Chase U segment that was kind of funny. We had Paul Heyman backstage. We had the entrance of John Cena and Carmelo Hayes. And then we had a video for Brian Pillman Jr., who is going to be called Lex's King. So he was basically saying, like, he was renouncing his father, saying that he doesn't want his father's name anymore. It was showing him watching videos of his father. Now, Brian Pillman Sr. is one of my favorite wrestlers ever. He's someone that I got like quite obsessed with as a child. He's like the ultimate what if in wrestling to me, like what he could have done. So it was wild seeing these videos of Brian Pillman Sr. Brian Pillman Jr. looked a little bit different. He actually looked like he was trying more to look like his dad, even though he was like renouncing the name. So King is the surname of the man that raised him. And it seems that his first name is going to be Lex's, though he didn't say that there. And I think, but I might be wrong on this, so please don't quote me, that is the name of his sister who passed away. Now, I love dead dad stuff. As a dead dad kid myself, so of course I was intrigued with this. I did think it was very good, but I just wonder, from what I've seen of Brian Pillman, if he's capable of executing this quite good idea for a character that they might have for him. Now, I don't want to judge him too harshly because I've only seen him do the Varsity Blonde stuff, but I do just have some reservations. It is interesting that he's not using the Brian Pillman name. Like, we can't say that we're renaming everyone because Jade Cargill's getting to keep her name, but it's interesting. Like, maybe he just didn't want that or whatever. If I was given the choice and I was him, I would have absolutely been Brian Pillman Jr., but I can get why you would want to distance yourself from your dad with, like, literally having the same name. In the ratings, 558 for AEW, 887 for NXT. For me, I was watching NXT this whole time. I'm not into Saraya matches, and I thought that Parker and Vice were doing really well on the other channel. And then I was very interested in seeing this Brian Pillman Jr. Lexus King video. Okay, now we're into the final quarter before the overrun. So what did AEW give us? We had this bit backstage with MJF and the Acclaimed. So Max Caster is always tweeting about MJF, like doing these like really flirty tweets towards MJF, and now they've kind of put this on screen. And basically Anthony Bowens and Daddy Ass were saying to Max Caster, like, leave MJF alone, he's a dick. And Max Caster like believes he could be a good guy. So I don't know, maybe him and Daniel Garcia should have a talk about how that just doesn't work out. And we had a live promo from Christian Cage. This was awesome. He told he told Adam's kids to change the sheets because a new dad's coming home. Something like that. It was really good. They referenced Beth. Christian was at his evil best. I love it. And then we got Adam Copeland versus Luchasaurus. Luchasaurus, of course, out first with Christian. Edge was so mad. He was so mad about the sheets comment that we just heard, you think you know him, dun, dun, and he just like ran out. He sprinted to the ring. Now, usually I would say that's really good because people, a lot of the time, wrestlers don't seem angry enough when they're coming out. Like, they don't seem angry enough, and it's a bit silly making your big entrance when someone's riled you up. But here it was like, the music is a big draw for Adam. So I'm not sure if I would have stopped the music like that. Over on NXT, we had Carmelo Hayes with John Cena defeating Braun Breaker. This match to me was totally fine. Verging on good. It wasn't, it was good. These two guys, to me, have outgrown NXT. I know there's a story they want to tell with Carmelo and Trick, but Carmelo is totally ready for the main roster, and so is Braun Breaker. And there's not really much more these two can show me down here. I thought it was a good match, but I don't really have much else to say on it. I'll have more to say on the post-match. As far as the ratings, we had 559 for Dynamite and 866 for NXT. Now, the overrun. Here we go. So, continuation of Adam Copeland versus Luchasaurus. I haven't talked about that match yet. This was like fine. Like, Luchasaurus wrestles like he's basically Kane. It was a joke that Kane was on, like, Luchasaurus, like Kane was on one screen, and then someone else very close to Kane was on another screen at one point. But his matches aren't very exciting. And it was a good debut, but not a very exciting debut. Like, Luchasaurus isn't the most exciting guy to debut your big new signing against, but it is a guy where it totally makes sense in the storyline. So I don't want to fault them too much for that. We had Nick Wayne interference as well, so he's still in the mix in that storyline. And then we ended with a post-match thing where Nick Wayne chopped blocked Adam, put the boots to him with Luchasaurus until Bryan Danielson hit the ring to make the save. But then Claudio and Wheeler Yuta came out and everything broke down. Mogul Embassy ran out for the heels. And then Adam Page ran out. He is rolling with Swerve. It was all just total chaos. And then we ended with Copeland hitting out Nick Wayne with a spear, and Christian Cage was tapping to the label lock. Now, over on NXT, their post-match was The Undertaker came out, and it was American Badass Undertaker, which brought up trauma for me. So basically, he told Braun Breaker that he will be a special talent one day, but that ain't today. And Breaker took a choke slam. And we ended off with Undertaker standing over Braun Breaker. So if we've met before, you will know that I am / was, but still am, like, a huge Undertaker fan. I was a huge Undertaker fan as a teenager. That's why I became a goth and got into goth music, was through The Undertaker. That's why I have that doll in this figure in the background here of him. Sexiest figure you can get. So him coming out as American Badass was not for me because as a child, when he first came out as American Badass and exposed himself as a fan of Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit, all my hopes and dreams and marriage plans were shattered. Sorry. Now, it is always cool seeing The Undertaker, but I hate this like legend getting one over on the young guy. Really, it doesn't make sense that The Undertaker would give a fuck about Braun Breaker in that way to come out and have a go at him. To me, that just makes an old guy look lame. Like, imagine in your work if you were confronted by an old man basically telling you that you weren't that great and stop thinking that you're the shit because you're not. That'd just be weird. And then the Undertaker getting a choke slam on him. Like, he obviously can't bump, but if he can't bump, he shouldn't be delivering choke slams. So I wasn't keen on this ending. The AEW Wild ending was pretty cool. Edge winning, not Edge, Adam Copeland winning over Luchasaurus was what was going to happen. But I have to say, I did think it was funny that both these shows, WWE's developmental brand and the hot young challenger brand AEW, both ended with WWE legends, Hall of Famers, over 50 standing tall. Adam Copeland and The Undertaker. Some things never change. So for that like overrun, we had 606,000 over on NXT. No, we had 606,000 over on Dynamite, 960,000 over on NXT. So final thoughts. For me, AEW Dynamite was the better show. It had two really awesome matches. Danielson, Swerve, and Adam Page and Jay White. So just them having those two matches, like for me, it made it the better show on the night. NXT really stacked the card with main roster talent and legends. And that does not give you a good idea of what NXT is. However, NXT is a brand that has increasingly been getting better and getting more positive attention. And I really like that for them. So hopefully some people saw NXT last night that hadn't been watching it and saw stars over there that they really like that will make them tune back in. And like I said earlier, I hope Tony Khan can learn a lesson from all of this because NXT beat them by quite a lot. And even though they brought in The Undertaker and whoever, it's still WWE's developmental brand. And things shouldn't be like this. And I want to see Tony fired up again, ready to take the fight, because I think he's totally lost that because whatever, his pay-per-views are so good, or he just realized how really hard it is to beat WWE. But I want to see a fired up Tony again, delivering really good week-to-week shows without nonsense, and not just focusing so much on how great his pay-per-views are. Tony Khan has the greatest roster of wrestlers ever assembled. He needs to fucking use them and book them well and put them in good storylines.
Let's fucking go!
NXT, the future of WWE, is bright. I like Braun Breaker a lot. I like Carmelo Hayes a lot. I like Trick a lot. I like Tiffany Stratton a lot. There's so much good stuff over on there too. Now I sound like one of those just like everything people. But I do wish that they went head to head every week because it was super fun watching them both at the same time. I got so much wrestling last night. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, or thank you for listening if you're listening on the podcast. This was technically an episode of my podcast, a bonus episode. My podcast is called The Bechdel Hold. If you're not subscribed on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast, go subscribe. If you can't find it on that app, send me a message on Twitter or something and tell me, and I'll make sure it's on the app. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube, and you can become a member to watch video versions of my podcast, or you can join my Patreon to watch video versions as well. There's also an offer right now on my OnlyFans. So until next time, bye.